Welcome to Cohort Conversations, where FOCUS sits down with graduates of our Citizens Academy program to delve into their unique experience.
Welcome to FOCUS Greater Syracuse. It's really great to have you in the office. You get to kind of see what it's like here. Yeah. A lot of you already know me. My name is Alicia Ernest. I'm the program director with FOCUS Greater Syracuse, and I have the pleasure of doing our Citizens Academy. So let's start off with you both telling us a little bit about yourselves. Jessica, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
So I grew up in the Troy, New York area outside of Albany, and I moved here in 2013 to go to SU for my grad degree, and just stayed here ever since. I live in Syracuse, and I work as a school librarian. And I found Citizens Academy through another librarian in the area. She told me about it, she went through, and I told other people, oh, I heard about this program, it sounds really amazing. And they ended up doing it before I did. And they told me, Jessica, you were right, it was amazing. And they're like, you need to do it too. And so I finally applied, and it was the right time, and I'm so glad that I did it.
My name is Minnoe. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I went to school at SUNY Brockport. I studied history and art history and moved back and forth between Buffalo and Syracuse for a handful of years, but landed here in 2017. My husband originally grew up here, so we came here. I have a job here in Syracuse. I have a family that I'm raising and 2 dogs, so that is my background.
So how did you come to Citizens Academy? What brought you here?
Yeah, so I found Citizens Academy on LinkedIn. I was already following FOCUS Greater Syracuse and seeing all the great things that they were doing. And so I saw the post, like I think a lot of people do, scrolling through. And I applied and was super excited to start.
What was it like being a participant? It's kind of different for every single person.
So when I first started the program, I was really excited and energized because I was doing a lot of research with my students about local issues, and the fact that the program gave me access to all of these local leaders to learn more about different initiatives was really exciting for me. And it just was a wonderful experience just from start to finish.
Were there any sessions or panelists or topics that really stood out for you and grabbed your attention?
For me, my favorite session was the wastewater treatment plant. You just learn so many different things that you can take away and actually do after you leave that session. And the panel is great, and they're so engaging, and they tell great stories, and they give great details on what they're doing because they do really important work. And the other part of it is that there's an optional tour. And the tour is so fun and so exciting, and not being from Syracuse, I've never gone on that tour before, and I know a handful of people who had, not even in the program. But you go past there every day. You go there going to the mall or to the highway, and you don't know what's actually going on there. So to go through that and to have a one-on-one tour also, where you can just ask any questions that you want about it, is so great. And I think there are a lot of other opportunities to go on tours, not just that one, which gives you a more in-depth understanding of what's happening in our community.
And the group really gets to bond too. That's when they get like that one-on-one, behind-the-scenes kind of feel. They get to start to know each other and network with each other. Jessica, were there any tours or sessions, panelists that really stood out to you?
I think that the one that really has always stood out to me is the very first session with Bob Searing. I think it really sets the tone, because I think a lot of people, we live in this community but we don't know the history, and I think it's really important to know the history of this area in order to really be able to understand all of the other working parts.
Absolutely. And he's such an engaging speaker too.
Really?
I mean, he grabs your attention right from the start and just keeps it right on through, like all the hundreds of years that he's talking about.
And it was great too because because of Citizens Academy, I was able to work with Bob and be able to coordinate a visit for our students. He came out to our school and spoke with our students, so it was really, really powerful.
That is so cool. I hear stories about how graduates are able to better serve their clients, but it never loses its like wow factor. Have you been on any of the other tours, and kind of what was your experience with those? Oh, go.
Another tour that I went on was for City Hall, and that was such a good one. I just went on that a few weeks ago, and it was very engaging, really interesting to learn about the history, and I loved Tori, who gave us a very interesting tour, especially learning about potential ghosts in City Hall, and she even showed us some video footage, so that was very good.
Is there any like community initiative or program that you've gotten involved with, or that you're really passionate about, or that you started kind of following?
One thing that I have become more interested in is learning more about transportation in Syracuse. I remember with the session that we talked about that, learning more about bus rapid transit. So that was really interesting. There's another person who is in our cohort who works for CNY Fair Housing, so making that connection with another member our participant was really great. And he's also come out to our school and talked with our students. So that has been a really interesting experience in learning more about housing in Syracuse.
So you got to connect with the presenters who were giving you the information
Yes.
and your fellow
Yes.
participants.
Yes.
Oh, that's always so cool. Any takeaways for you, or any programs that you really want to get involved in, or have already gotten involved in?
I started getting more involved with Center State CEO, who are also on one of our panels, I think, for economic development. So I'm a volunteer with them now, and I'm an ambassador, and we go out and celebrate exciting things that are happening in our community. So that's really cool because I get to see people who have been in business for 35 years and celebrate them, or people who have just done a grand opening of a new party planning place. And it's really rewarding to see what's happening, and that came out of FOCUS of me wanting to know what's happening in our community, and I feel like it's really helped a lot.
So you kind of touched on the fact that the program allowed you to kind of connect with the panelists and some of your fellow cohort members. Are there any that you're maybe still in touch with?
Yeah, Adal Mayan and Jimmy Oliver both came out and spoke with some of our students, which was really amazing to be able to make that connection. And I think the students found it to be really powerful to actually be able to write an email and make that connection themselves. And it was so gracious of them to make the time.
So we've just launched applications for our next group of Citizens Academy participants. Would you agree that now is a good time for people to apply?
Listen, there is never a bad time to learn more about your community. So I would say absolutely apply. If you haven't applied already, you should apply. And then also just thinking about wintertime in Syracuse, that's not a bad time to try to reach out and form a stronger community.
Yeah, and I think kind of bouncing off of that, the new year, that's part of the reason why I applied to the winter cohort, was because it was a new year, and I had a New Year's intention of getting more involved. And so I think going into this winter cohort, if you're looking to have a New Year's intention and get more involved in the community, this is the perfect opportunity to do that.
Oh my god, that's perfect, because our deadline is literally New Year at midnight. Like, that is the cutoff. Can you imagine? Like, that's so much better than New Year's resolution, because by like April 9th, our graduation for this cohort, you could have a new certificate. Like, you could be so immersed in the community too.
Yeah.
So, I love that you brought that up. I did not know that.
And one thing I love too about Citizens Academy is that you meet so many different kinds of people. People who you wouldn't necessarily run into in your everyday life. So it's a really powerful experience.
What would you say to somebody who's kind of on the fence about applying?
I feel like there's not a reason not to. So there's food that's available, it's at a great time of day, it's a once a week thing, it's a limited amount of time, there's scholarships available. I don't feel like there's a reason not to. You're going to learn more about your community, you're going to make some connections, some new friends, get out of the house in the wintertime. What's not to like?
You don't have to stay cooped up in the winter. That's
Yeah.
a really good point.